Hardy, peoples of the interwebs, Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator, turned current Florida Rumbler in my home office, getting ready to do a podcast with the unusual suspects at the Valuetainment head offices, which is on a runway, which is right behind me. The breaking news of the day, people are flipping their lids in anticipation of what the details might be. CBS News is announcing that the FBI allegedly, according to two sources, has arrested a man in connection with the January 6th pipe bombs. Now, the reason why this is so stunning is because the investigation into the pipe bombs has been going on for about 5 years. 5 years. In fact, it's 5 years because the statute of limitations is going to lapse as of January 7th, 2026. And about a month ago, maybe it's a little more as at the time of shooting this vlog, Steve Baker, a journalist at The Blaze, put out a bombshell expose in which he identified a potential suspect of the January 6th pipe bomber, who was none other than a Capitol Police officer turned employee at the CIA. And Steve Baker and The Blaze identified this individual based on height, based on gait analysis, and based on other methods which we don't yet know the details of, and determined, based on a gait analysis, which is an expert analyzing the way a body moves, between a 92 and 98% degree of certainty that the person they identified was the person in the hoodie walking around who allegedly planted the pipe bombs the night before they were discovered. All right, the FBI did not make any meaningful statement about that. The FBI, which has now been at the helm of the Trump administration for 9 months, hadn't made any headway. Apparently, maybe they had behind closed doors and we just didn't know about it, but there were no announcements up until Steve Baker coming out with his expose identifying the potential January 6th pipe bomber, who was a former Capitol Police officer who was there on January 6th, not allegedly, just depending on whether or not it's the same person, the Capitol Police officer who was in videos, in photographs, shooting rubber bullets in a manner that was not less than lethal, potentially lethal on the crowd. Baker identifies it. The FBI comes out with an opaque statement saying that the $500,000 reward is still out there. After Baker's article comes out, after a little bit of some deafening silence from Kash Patel and the FBI, CBS News comes out with an article saying that the person Steve Baker identified in his expose, his bombshell expose, could not possibly be the January 6th pipe bomber, because the January 6th pipe bomber placed those bombs the evening before, I think it's around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, allegedly. And the person Steve Baker identified in his expose had an alibi, which was a video of her playing with her puppies at the time the pipe bomb was placed. 5 years later, where this video was recorded, who knows? What the metadata was on this video, who knows? The person had an alibi. She was playing with her puppies when the bombs were placed. Now, the only problem is, subsequent to that CBS alibi, Kyle Seraphin posted a tweet showing that the person that Steve Baker identified as potentially the pipe bomber doesn't have multiple dogs, puppies, and didn't have a puppy at the time this occurred, having adopted an adult greyhound. So even the CBS alibi story made zero sense at the time. And for the discerning reader who would have read that CBS alibi story, you might have appreciated that it was less of an alibi exonerating of the person Steve Baker identified and more of a hit piece on Tulsi Gabbard and the ODNI, because they were alleged to have run with this memo internally. My goodness, there's a lot of noise. Well, we're gonna have to deal with it. These are the risks of having a car for a home office. The ODNI had a memo circulating internally, allegedly also identifying or suspecting this person of having been the person who planted the pipe bomb. So that CBS News article was sort of painting Tulsi Gabbard and the ODNI as having acted on inaccurate information, supporting conspiracy theories, and having identified an otherwise allegedly innocent person that Steve Baker identified. Okay, fine. Today, CBS News comes out with an article saying, according to two sources, the FBI has arrested an individual, a man, a Virginia man, in connection with the pipe bombs. Now, again, you got to go read that article. It says absolutely nothing. In connection with means absolutely nothing. It could be someone who was a driver. It could be someone who lied to the FBI in the context of their investigation into the Jan 6 pipe bomber. So the words in connection with mean strictly nothing. I'm putting this out right now because if it turns out that my analysis of fake news media is correct, people might have been duped. People might have been misled. In connection with means absolutely nothing. We'll see what it means. We'll see who it is. It seems like CBS News, in running the alibi trying to exonerate the person Steve Baker identified, is now saying they've arrested someone in connection with, leading you to believe it was the pipe bomber, and it's a man, so it could not possibly have been the person that Steve Baker identified. So set aside the words in connection with mean absolutely nothing, and you might be getting duped. The CBS News article of today, announcing the arrest of a person in connection with, is also a hit piece on Donald Trump, and people need to appreciate that. It goes in to ratify the January 6th insurrection bullcrap narrative by saying, oh, in the context of that investigation into the pipe bomber, which took 5 years under the old FBI, 9 months under the new FBI, which led to 1,500 people being arrested. That's the CBS News article of today, ratifying the nonsense rubbish narrative of the January 6th insurrection, which we now know to be a January 6th Fedsurrection. So you're being lied to twice by these CBS News articles. We'll see what the in connection with means. I don't know what it means. Can't even come to an opinion on it yet. I'm waiting for more details, but I am prepared to be right, always, that CBS News is running cover for somebody, running two articles that ostensibly look like journalism, even though the petting puppies alibi was based on 3 anonymous sources that have not been identified or confirmed or denied by the FBI. And now they've got 2 anonymous sources saying they've arrested someone in connection with a Virginia man, the pipe bombs. We don't know what that connection is. And they go on to ratify the January 6th insurrection, big bad thing that resulted in 1,500 people being arrested. Both articles are hit pieces on the Trump administration, and you need to understand that. Now, I will wait for further news. I will see where this goes. If you like what I do, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Drop a comment whenever I post a video, because it feeds that big, bad, dirty algorithm. And Viva seems to be in the bad books of the YouTube, CommieTube algorithm. But that's what it is. That's where we're at. And I will be right, and I will take a victory lap when I am. If I am. And if I'm not, I will have at least adopted the healthy approach of skepticism and wait for more details. Thus far, nothing but anonymous sources in 2 fake news articles that are in fact disguised hit pieces on the Trump administration. You heard it here first, people. Viva Fry. If you like the vlog, you know what to do. Booyah!
On January 5th, 2021, a mysterious person covered from head to toe placed pipe bombs outside both the Democratic National Committee and Republican National Committee here in our nation's capital. We don't know the suspect's name or anything about this person other than the fact this is a male that was living in Northern Virginia, arrested at some point within the last 90 minutes, now in federal custody. I'm told we'll know more as the day moves on, and as soon as we have the information, of course, we will break in with that. But just this past October, a couple of months ago, the FBI put out this enhanced video and pictures of the masked suspect planting pipe bombs near a bench outside the DNC in Washington on January 5th, 2021, the night before the attack on the U.S. Capitol. The suspect then placed the same type of bomb outside the RNC minutes later. The suspect, as I said, wore a face mask, hooded sweatshirt, glasses, gloves. But using FBI technology, agents told the public the suspect they believe is around 5'7". We'll see, Bill, if that rings true once we get an identity later today. Agents say the 2 bombs were placed between 7:30 and 8:30 at night. The bombs did not detonate, but this is important. They were viable. They could have hurt people. They could have killed people. Those bombs were discovered the next day.